Now then, welcome back. So we're going to reflect on the weekend's Gaelic football. It was a busy one. On Saturday, the big headline news: Mayo 17 points, Roscommon 2-12 in Connacht. In Ulster, Antrim Tyrone went the way of Tyrone, as you might expect, 2-23 to 2-9. On the Sunday, Donegal 15 points to Fermanagh 9 was the final score. They were only up by a point at half-time, but saw that one home. And then on Sunday, doubleheader in Tullamore at O'Connor Park. Kildare and Longford a draw after extra time. They'll both have to do that again. And then Westmeath 10 points, Laois 12 points. Laois beaten already by Westmeath twice in the league this year. Won that game well in the end. They were hanging on a touch, but they were well up at half-time. And then, well, Saturday, Meath 2-18, Carlow 9 points. And Dublin 5-21, a real statement, 5-21 to Louth's 10 points is where we are. We'll talk to Liam MacHale and Kieran Donaghy in just a moment. On Mayo, David Brady was on our sports breakfast show this morning, OTB AM. Here's what he had to say about Mayo always giving the opposition a chance.
No matter who they play against, whether it's the Derrys, the Kildares, you know, even in league football to a degree, the Monaghan's, the Cavans, the Roscommons, everyone has a chance, and everyone has been given a chance, and I think that's probably a failure from a Mayo perspective on the way they approach games. That they open up an opportunity for every team because of the way they play, the style they play, and I think we've seen it on Saturday evening. The way that they allowed the game to open them up, and I think that's a major learning from a Mayo perspective. And the game did open them up, especially around their half-back line. I'm surprised from both sides on the pitch and off the pitch that they allowed that naivety to creep into their game, and it was a perfect tactical game plan from a Roscommon point of view. And you know what? Yeah. Brendan Harrison, Chris Barrett, Keith Higgins didn't have one of their finest games, but it would have been torture to be playing in the full back line with the amount of space that was afforded to the inside Roscommon forward line.
David Brady speaking this morning. Liam, you're there? You can hear us?
Yeah.
Good man, Liam.
How are you, Joe?
Great, great. Yeah, Kieran Donaghy, you're there?
Hi, Liam.
How are you doing?
Hi, Joe. How's it going? Well done in the Hall of Fame, Liam. Fair play to you, bye.
Thank you very much. You'll be there in a few years' time yourself, I'm sure.
You're an actual Hall of Famer now. We all knew it a long time, but you can actually, it's official now.
Thanks, Kieran.
Do you get a medal or anything? Do you get to walk around with anything, Liam?
I have a medal around my neck now, Joe, since last Saturday week. So it was nice to get presented at something in Croke Park. It hasn't been a happy hunting ground for me over the years, so it was nice to be there on the winning side for once.
Well deserved, I'm sure.
Thank you very much, fellas.
No doubt. So listen, let's talk about this game. Mayo 17 points, Roscommon 2-12. You know, it's interesting listening to David Brady there, Liam, talking about Mayo always giving the opposition a chance, and that certainly has been true over the last couple of years. But in James Horan's first tenure in charge, Mayo didn't give teams chances. They blitzed the lesser teams right the way through Connacht for several years. So it's not like that's always been the case.
Yeah, it really is amazing, Joe, that Mayo won't be contesting a Connacht final again this year. 4 years in a row now. It's a Roscommon Connacht final. And when you consider that Mayo have been one of the best teams in the country in that period, it's bizarre what's happening in Connacht. And I was on your show earlier last week, and I expected it to be a very competitive game. Obviously I know the Roscommon lads very well, but I expected Mayo to pull away in the end because of the strength and depth that they have and the power that they have around the middle of the field. And the game that I thought it panned out sort of the way I expected it to be, but I did not expect Mayo to be as wasteful as they were in front of goal. Now, I think they kicked something like 15 or 16 wides. They kicked 2 or 3 into the goalie's hands and a couple of half-goal chances that they didn't execute. But Joe, some of that is down to the great effort defensively that Roscommon put in, but some of the wides were really, really poor, and there'll be a lot of players in the Mayo setup this week that will be very disappointed with their finishing. Even down to the last 2 or 3 minutes, Lee kicked one into goalie's hands. There was a mix-up then where young Henley should have probably taken a long-range free, and then there was a kind of a bit of confusion between Kevin McLaughlin and Conor Loftus and Diarmuid O'Connor for a fairly handy free as well. So even at the end, Mayo probably should have put it into extra time, and God only knows what would have happened then. So, they had plenty of attacks, they had plenty of possession. I think they had over 40 attacks, but they just did not execute in front of goal. And when Mayo are confronted with these mass defences, they seem to struggle a little bit. And Kieran will tell you, even though the Kerry boys don't do it that much, every wide that you kick in a tight game like that, in an attritional game like that, takes away your confidence and takes away your energy. And I think that's exactly what happened in the end, that the wide count eventually got to the players, and they struggled because of that.
I guess the hope would have been, Kieran, that they would have had the experience, the big game experience, to withstand that shock to the confidence. That I can appreciate what Liam's saying. You get a few wides, it's a mass defence, it's not going your way, and you concede those 2 goals as well in quick succession. I can see how you look around and say, oh, this is not where we wanted to be. But you just sort of felt like the experience would have been there to see them through. Like, did you sense panic in the last 5-10 minutes from this Mayo team, or was it just a quality issue which had been ongoing all game?
I think, to be fair to both teams, the game started, the conditions were good on firm ground, and then when you get that shower of rain kind of coming up to half time and kind of after the second half, it just makes everything that bit harder. You have to kind of recalculate how ball is going to hit your hands. You have to recalculate when it's bouncing, what way do you run onto it. And I think in the last 10 minutes, at that stage, the rain was quite heavy, and both teams, just their skill set was poor. I don't know, was it because there was such a high intensity of the game where both teams a bit tired late on, but like the mistakes that were there in the last 10 minutes were cruel from both sides. I remember Roscommon having a free, I think they might have been up a point or might have been level down in the corner back position, and it was just roofed up into the air. Like, it's something that we haven't seen in a long time, where you be kind of at that stage of the game, you be kind of like possession is king, hold on to the ball. But just fundamental errors, bad decisions, maybe a bit of tiredness thrown in. And I think both teams were struggling actually to get over the line, and it was Roscommon got the bolt of energy from the block down, and they countered up the pitch, and lovely play by the 2 Smiths out in the right wing, and I think it was Donaghy that played it into Fintan Craig, and he slotted over what was to be the winner. But even after that, Mayo had another chance as well, and again just errors, and obviously look, the free was, it just proves how much of a loss Cillian O'Connor is, because I even think, with Henley coming up the pitch taking frees, if they're not going over, it's upsetting his general confidence on the game as a total, and then goal kicks start going astray, and you start overthinking everything then as a keeper, so that's why, Cillian O'Connor is a massive loss. And the other thing, Roscommon are just a good side. They're in Division 1. They lost a lot of games by close margins. Yeah. And when I looked at the programmes for him, a bit more fearful of what Roscommon had up front. With, I knew Conor Cox, obviously the Kerry kid who had a great game, and Cathal Craig has always been a great player and has always showed up in the biggest occasions. So I knew he was going to come, and then Murtagh obviously didn't start, but I think it was O'Hanlon was brought in instead of him, the big man with the left leg, and he played really well. He lovely pass down the sideline. So they just showed up to play and got a bit of momentum, and got, I suppose, the goals were great to them. To settle him into the game, Joe. Yeah,
I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, certainly about Roscommon being a good team and the conditions changing, but even in that kind of circumstance, you'd expect the better team to come through, the more experienced team to come through. James Horan said afterwards, we made poor decisions, our shot selection was poor, we had a number of shots blocked down, number of shots wide, we kicked under pressure, maybe we didn't back ourselves enough to make sure we took the right shots at the right time. 15 wides is just too many. I think in total, Liam, they had 36 chances, and obviously took 17 of them. Like the traditional old failings, the ones that this team had kind of put to bed for a long time seemed to come out. Same question to you that I put to Kieran. Did you think they panicked in the last 10 minutes, or what did you make of that period?
Well, that's the surprising thing, Joe, and that's why I thought Mayo would hold on and win in a tight game, because of the experience that they would have on the pitch at that time, and there was a couple of young guys there, young Rowan, and a few of them were out there at that time, and Conor Loftus was in late. But overall, it was a real experienced team, and the conditions definitely didn't help, especially when you're chasing the game like Mayo were for pretty much the whole second half. But that's the surprising thing, that the composure wasn't there. I couldn't believe it when Lee Keegan kicked the ball into the goalie's hands. I was a little bit worried about Kevin McLaughlin's free at the end, because like he wouldn't be, as Kieran said, and he's 100% right, that Killian is a huge loss, and it looked to me like Conor Loftus wanted to come over and take it, who's a more natural free taker than Kevin McLaughlin possibly, So that's the surprising thing. They definitely panicked a bit. I've been in that situation before. So Kieran has been in that position before, where you're 100% confident, 100% convinced that you're going to win the game. You might be a couple of percentages points off because of that. Roscommon come in, a good team that have been in the top 8-10 for the last 4 or 5 years, come in hungry and ravenous for the battle. You're 2 or 3 percentage points off, and next thing you're 2 or 3 points going into the last 10 minutes, and then anything like it, you're really struggling. You're really fighting against the tide, trying to get back into it, and that's when this poor decision making that James Horn talked about. There was plenty of occasions, Joe, that there was an extra pass in it to get a fella wide open look, and the shot was blocked down. That pass wasn't made, and that was unbelievable. I think it happened to Andy at one stage. I think it was Ronan Daly that got a brilliant block. There was another pass in that to get a guy wide open. I can't remember who the guy was, but when the likes of Andy is doing that, you'd be like really, really surprised. And I definitely at the end, and it has happened to the best of teams, definitely at the end a certain amount of panic came in, because what are we doing in this position? We better roll up our sleeves and get this done, and they just weren't able to do it, because Roscommon, as Kieran said, are a good side, and they had the bit between their teeth at this stage, and they said, we're not this goal now, we have it,
Yeah. The 2 goals, Kieran, we should touch on, like Henley invariably is going to attract plenty of criticism. You were at the stadium working for Sky there. Like the second one, his kick out, how bad a kick out was it? His general game, like, is that now a big issue for James Horn going forward? Is he going to have to make a change there?
Well, you see, it was only 2 months ago that we were saying Henley had a great game above in the league final against Kerry, and he made the brilliant save at the end, and his kick-outs were great, and he slotted over a few long frees. So, that's a big question for him, how his form was coming into. He didn't have a good game. He'll know that himself. I think he was rattled. I think the Craig goal rattled him early because, it was coming in at such a tight angle, and next thing it was in over his head. But like for us looking out at it, them goals, the free, the goal kick that led to the second goal, there was a bit of movement going on, but it was a bad kick out. I can't really blame any of the fellas that were moving. He just missed. And I think we have to really look at the decisions, and you have to give Roscommon credit for forcing them into them decisions as well, and being ready to capitalise, and then making all the right decisions to get the goal. The mistake is only the first part, but it still has to be finished, and I thought Roscommon did a great job playing the 1-2. There was no selfishness involved in it. I think it was O'Hanlon again that was laid it across, and that was his first start. He was after kicking a point. He could have gone for the goal, but made the right decision. So but Craig's goal was a thing of beauty. Like he got in behind Higgins. Higgins can be a bit looser when he's out the field. He's one of the best man markers in the last 15 years. But I always found when you drift out the pitch, or he drifts out the pitch, he starts thinking about getting on the ball more. And he's not as tight when he's back in at the number 4, the traditional corner-back role. So when he gets out the field, he kind of becomes more of an offensive player. He starts thinking that way. And he just ball-watched for a second. Peter Canavan highlighted it on the Aki after the game. And you could see him just ball-watching. You could see Craig get in behind him. Lovely movement. I always say to forwards, if you can get in behind your man and make him look over his shoulder, whatever way he looks, you can break off the other side and you'll get 2 or 3 yards. Yeah. And he did that, but he had so much work to do. He soloed down the left wing at top speed, in along the end line, and it was poor from Chris Barrett. And Mayo will have a lot of stuff to look forward to, and Mayo will be right here, and there'll be no panic in that Mayo dressing room because they're so experienced. They'll be disappointed. There's people going to have to be called out. The Barrett running out after his man with Craig going in along the end line is a mortal sin for me. I'm sure Keith Higgins, wouldn't be happy with his fellow cornerback kind of, running out the field after a man where it has to be stopped to goal. Like if Barrett goes to him there, season, Craig probably spins around, recycles out the Barrett's man who pops it over the bar, which is a point, which is no real momentum score. It's just a settler for Carl Craig, and instead Craig goes in along the end line and buries it into the roof of the net and jogs back out the pitch ready to have the best half of football he's had in a long time. And in the first half he was amazing, and then it was obviously Mayo to kind of sacrifice in a way Lee Keegan, but Lee did what every good half back can do, is is got Cahill going the other way then for the last 6-7 minutes of the first half, and particularly in the second half. And Craig dived in, he showed real bravery, diving in for a ball right at the start of the second half and got a bad bang to the head. And, I'd say that probably ended his day. He wasn't as effective and he came off soon after. So, but like, there were 2 big goals and 2 big momentum plays and really ones that you could feel the stadium, you could feel a bit of edge. All of a sudden, these confident Mayo fans were all of a sudden kind of, geez, this might be a bit of a battle here today.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you kind of thought when Mayo go back in front, that would be it. But then obviously we know what happened. Liam, I guess to kind of round off this chat, you look now at Mayo's route, say, back to an All-Ireland final, if you're being super ambitious and judging this team by the standards they've set over the last 5 to 10 years, you could be talking maybe 8 games in the next 9 to 10 weeks, and suddenly that looks very, very daunting indeed. And I don't know, maybe last year's defeat to Kildare, not making the Super 8s, now takes on a deeper resonance in spite of the success they had during the league, and it was great to get that league final win, obviously, and there were really nice scenes in Croke Park. But now suddenly you look at last year in the context of what happened over the weekend, and you really do worry for this Mayo team. You don't want to write them off because they've done amazing things, but they're testing the faith in a big way now. Will they make the Super 8s?
I'd agree with Kieran. I think they will. I think they'll navigate the qualifiers, and I think they'll get into Super 8. I think they'll get into the All-Ireland semi-finals, Joe, to be honest with you. This is a major setback, there's no doubt about that. The big fella's really, really disappointed. But they've got a second bite at the cherry now, and it's like really, it's last chance to do now. There's no more room for errors, I think they might need 1 or 2 handy games in the qualifiers at first to get back on the road. But I think once they get Cillian O'Connor back, I think all these experiences will stand to the young fellas. There's a few adjustments to be made. There certainly has to be work done on their decision making and their accuracy up front. And certainly, fellas, maybe, I don't know, maybe a bit selfish, maybe not getting their heads up early enough, but there's a lot of the players, there was an extra pass in to get a fella wide open look. All those things have to be looked at. They're all very, very fixable. Things will get better when you have an experienced player like Cillian O'Connor running the show in there. I think young fellas will grow from that. I think they'll dust themselves down, Joe, and I think they will. I think they'll be in the All-Ireland semi-finals come the end of the summer. Okay.
Quickly on that, Kieran?
Yeah, I think they're going to be right there. I think they'll get into the Super 8s. I think they have to make some changes. I'd be getting Diarmuid O'Connor into centre forward, really. I just think they need him. He's too good of a player to be playing out in the flanks, and he was kind of quiet at times the last day. I'd play him out there, and, you get Cillian O'Connor back in. And also, if I was in the Mayo setup, I would look at it, and it's a bit out there, but I would look at it because Andy's the perfect player for it. That Peter Canavan role, because they were a bit shaky early on at the game the last day. If you've Andy inside there and he's fresh and he's moving around and he's settling and he's getting the crowd going, and especially you're going to need this in the qualifiers. And they don't have too much depth in the inside line. So, looking at starting Andy, maybe taking him off 5 minutes before half time, giving him that, letting him recharge the batteries. And then if the game is in the melting pot and you're throwing him back on with 10 minutes to go, he's going to rise the crowd. He's going to be experienced. You'll be hoping he'd make the right decisions. I don't think his decision was great the last day, but I'm not going to paint him with a brush over that.
Yeah.
I think he can execute that kick. It was an excellent block. Could he have been cooler? Maybe dropped the dummy. He could have, but there was bodies everywhere. So I'd say he was just trying to get a shot at the post because it was quite a while since they got a decent effort at the post to take the lead. And obviously at that stage of the game, that's what Andy was trying to do. But I just think they have to think a bit more outside the box. Just that forward unit the last day, I would say Diarmuid O'Connor out of all the starters is the only fella that's getting on a Dublin forward line. He's probably the only fella getting on a Kerry forward line as well from that team, and they just, they have to figure out a way to be as dangerous because their half-back line is top class, and the way Paddy Durkin and Lee Keegan drove them forward, and I think Colin Boyle was a big loss last day. I'm not sure why he wasn't brought on with 10 minutes to go just to give them that bit of steel and a bit of impetus to go forward because Durkin and Keegan were causing wreck attacking from the half-back line. So I think, there's plenty to work with there in Mayo, and I'm sure James will work on what Liam talked about because there's a lot in what Liam is saying as well. But for that group of players, it'll be a case of, okay, lads, let's roll up the sleeves. It's going to be a summer full of loads of games. I'm not worried about 8 games, Joe, or 7 games to get back into a semi-final. Right. These guys are supreme fit athletes, training all the time around. I think that day of worrying about playing games week on week is something of the past. I think we see the hurlers doing it. There was a bit thrown out last year that the hurlers were tired on week 3.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really adhere to that. I think even you'll see that this year, that they'll be more used to the system. They would have tailored their training earlier on in the year to work on that. And I think Mayo will tailor now their training, but you can't beat match sharpness. You can't beat match games. You can't beat it for what it's going to do with the confidence in Mayo after this. They'll build through the qualifiers. The crowd will get behind them. There'll be less talk about them. I feel the league. They did really well to win the league, but there were stages in the league they looked really poor, and I think that league kind of covered over maybe some of the cracks that Roscommon exposed the last day. So they'll have no choice now but to face up to them.
Okay.
Whether that's the goalie situation, midfield, or who's starting up front, but I think they have all the stuff to do it.
Okay. We'll watch and see. As ever, the Mayo season ticket holder gets the best value for money in world sport. The vagaries of the TV coverage and the clock coming against us mean we don't have, we can't go into huge depth on the other games. Cian O'Neill is sounding the stick bias klaxon to Kildare fans. They're going to have to navigate Longford in a replay, and that's now 2 shaky enough performances from a Kildare perspective. They can't seem to replicate what we saw from them in Newbridge against Mayo last year. The other eye-catching scoreline, of course, was less Louth's 10 points and more Dublin's 5-21. Liam, I mean, look, these are the early stages, but 5-21 just signifies plenty, not least that they have, whatever was going on in the league, fine, but they have rocked up here in good shape, and there is an efficient and ruthless streak about Dublin right from the off here. That was an ominous scoreline when everybody saw that come in. Yeah,
for sure, and they look very, very ordinary at times in the league. I was shocked the Tyrone Dublin performance in Croke Park and how easily Tyrone had beaten that Dublin team, and a lot of good players on that Dublin team at the time. So, I think everybody was thinking maybe they're gone off the boil a little bit, maybe their hunger is gone. But then they get a couple of weeks, maybe a month's good practices in, get their heads refocused, and now they're heading for 5 in a row, and it'll take a right good team to beat them. There's a couple of teams out there that can put it up to them: Tyrone, Mayo, Kerry, Donegal, teams like that. But you'd have to say the way they went out and performed on Saturday, they weren't sloppy, not for a second. They just went out and ruthlessly destroyed a low team that has been playing well in the recent past. And it really is. It's going to be, as I said, Joe, it's going to take a very, very good team, a well organised team, a team with a brilliant defence to come close to beating that Dublin team this year.
Yeah. I guess, Kieran, you can only echo that, really. You can't really critique 5-21.
You can't, no. And look, I think Jim Gavin has actually played this perfect. I think he didn't put any emphasis in the league. He didn't like that there was rules in there that weren't in it for the championship, and I just think he didn't push his players too hard.
Was ridiculous, by the way, really, at the time. Like, he wasn't. Yeah. You can kind of sympathise with that.
Yeah, no, I just think he's played this perfect. Like, there's nobody going to remember in 30 years that if Dublin, how they did in that league in 2019, they'll just remember them winning the 5 in a row. And I think Jim has put his team in a perfect position to do so. And when you look at the second favourites at home losing the weekend, it's just a bit scary about how this Dublin team are kind of just rocking up for the championship and being down to 14 men after 20 minutes and still scoring 5-21. They're an amazing group of players, and the experience they're finishing with in games is unbelievable. Like, when you look at the subs that they brought on against Louth, so they're absolutely in the perfect position, and they'll have everything going their way. They'll win Leinster and they'll get into the Super 8s, and hopefully the Super 8s is where we'll see a few big games between the. Mayo are going to be in some group now. You could have Monaghan being in a Super 8 draw, as well as 4 provincial winners, and your provincial losers in Ulster aren't going to be a bad side, and your provincial losers in Connacht aren't going to be a bad side. So your 2 provincial losers that you're kind of waiting on would be the Kerry, which will either be Kerry, Cork or Limerick, and look, call a spade, Kerry should win the Munster Championship. So you're either talking Cork or Limerick to be in that, and so you're looking at a very competitive Super 8, which will only fuel Dublin more and only help them more to not get cut out. And they're going to come into a semi-final after winning the 2 or 3 Super League or Super 8 games, and they're going to be 170 minutes away from history. And as Liam rightly said, it's going to take a really good team with huge self-belief that'll have to be built on over the summer. Whatever management team do it best, whatever group create the best team bonding and team chemistry, because you're going to need buckets of that to take on this Dublin team, because they have it, and they have it built in from what they've won over the years. They've had it built in. They never fussed. You know, if Jack McCaffrey goes away for a year, they just go on and win an All-Ireland. If Rory O'Carroll goes away, they just go on and win All-Irelands. If Diarmuid Connolly quits playing for whatever reason, they go on and win an All-Ireland. So they're a brilliant group, and I think Jim Gavin has pulled off a masterstroke, if I'm being honest, by really, I'd say, letting loose and letting them kind of just find their way in the league and getting certain minutes into certain guys and keeping freshness is big. So I think they're going to be obviously very hard to beat this summer.
And in his post-match interview, if you didn't hear it, he most definitely left the door open for Diarmuid Connolly. So I would watch that space. Yeah, lads, we'll have to wrap it up. Lovely to be on the line with two fine basketball men. We'll leave it there. Thanks very much. Liam MacHale, Kieran Donaghy. See you, fellas.
Thanks, Joe.